Hi, everyone. Today I am returning to Simon and Garfunkel, which, as you know, has become a sort of favorite folk rock band. And, well, today I am actually listening to Scarborough Fair, it predates Simon and Garfunkel by a long while because it is a traditional English folk tune. I know that. I'm familiar with the melody, with the tune. I've played it on the harp from time to time, various arrangements and ensembles. I've taught it in simplified form to beginner students. I know the melody. So I'm very curious to see what Simon and Garfunkel has done with this famous, beautiful tune. Scarborough Fair is a traditional English ballad. The song lists a number of impossible tasks given to a former lover who lives in Scarborough, North Yorkshire. The Scarborough-Whittingham Fair variant was most common in Yorkshire and Northumbria, where it was sung to various melodies, often using Dorian mode, with refrains resembling parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and then she'll be a true love of mine. It appears in Traditional Tunes, which is the title of a collection dated 1891, by Frank Kidson, who claims to have collected it from Whitby. Well, this is a good moment to say that there was a lot going on in the early 20th century. Well, this is a little pre-20th century, 1891, but still kind of moving into that era where a lot of musicians and scholars were interested in collecting and preserving traditional folk tunes all around the world, not only in England, not only in Europe, but all around the world. But there was a big effort to kind of gather them, catalog them, preserve them, which is kind of a funny idea if you think about it, because a folk tune is something that has just been passed through generation after generation after generation in many forms. Well, it even says here, it was sung to various melodies, and the refrain resembled something like parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, but not always strictly that. That's the way folk melodies are, and it depends on which location, how the version has developed in various locations. But as the Industrial Revolution had a big impact, and as transportation and communication was developing, there was this fear, very well grounded, that these traditional tunes would be lost, and their unique characteristics rooted to a particular locale would also be lost. And so this doesn't surprise me that all of this listing here. In fact, I've been aware of some of this, because I've taught the piece, and I always try to give students history of the piece as much as possible. The famous melody was collected from Mark Anderson, who lived from 1874 to 1953. Same period of time, isn't it? A retired lead miner from Middleton in Teesdale, County Durham, England, by Ewan MacColl in 1947. Okay, that's a mouthful of a sentence there, isn't it? But basically, Mark Anderson collected it from a local, Ewan MacColl, in 1947. Again, it's right in that era, isn't it? This version was recorded by a number of musicians in the 20th century, including the iconic 1968 arrangement in Counterpoint by the American folk rock duo Simon and Garfunkel, who learned the ballad from Martin Carthy. Counterpoint. This will be interesting. In London in 1965, Paul Simon learned the song from Martin Carthy. Simon and Garfunkel set it in counterpoint with Canticle, a reworking of the lyrics from Simon's 1963 anti-war song, The Side of a Hill. Oh, cool. They used the same tune as Carthy had for the traditional lyrics, while Simon's anti-war lyrics were set to a new melody composed mainly by Art Garfunkel. What an interesting collaboration and idea. Okay, this is going to be fun to listen to.
Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. to make me a kind of
The harpsichord?
the deep forest green. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, sparrow and snow-crested brown, without no seam nor needs, and echoes the child of romance. Then she'll be a true love of mine. Sleeps unaware of a cloudy and calm. Tell her to find me a acre of land, a sprinkling of leaves. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and toshes that breathe silent between the salt water and the sea strands and polishes of pen. She'll be a true love of mine. Tell her to reap it in a sickle, billows blazing in scarlet battalion. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and geraniums, born of the seasons to keep, and gather it all at the financial peddlers may long ago forgotten. She'll be a true love of mine. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine.
That was one of the most beautiful blendings of traditional and modern composition that I've heard in a long while. It is just incredible. And I guess I need to say why, at least a little bit of why, but it was spellbinding. I couldn't bear to touch the pause button. It was just this beautiful tapestry woven from start to finish. Okay, I feel like on this one, I need to go back and we need to do a little bit of start and stop and talk about some of these details, which are just so utterly beautiful. Nice opening. It's simple guitar, broken chord pattern. It sets up a nice texture for everything. Okay, so these little ding dong, they accentuate certain parts of what the guitar is doing. This is kind of the first clue that adds some kind of, shall I say, complexity. We have this simple accompaniment, nice accompaniment. And when the voice comes in, it's kind of sung in this timeless quality, meaning it's soft. There's almost a feeling of detachment in a way, meaning it feels like somehow it's removed from the world we live in. And that sets up just some incredible opportunities, which they really dug into in this song. But to set it as kind of coming from a different world, it's not really, I wouldn't say it's reflective. I wouldn't say that it's mournful. I wouldn't say that it is somehow longing for another time, the voice itself, but it kind of creates, it builds, it exists in this other time. That's how I feel it. And then those little bells, ding, 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 just syncopated enough, accentuating a couple of the offbeat moments of the accompaniment. That is our first introduction of another strand in the tapestry. And really, I feel like this one just begs to be spoken of as if it's a fine tapestry with so many lines traveling, strands here, there, and everywhere. So that's how it starts, and it's a sweet start.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
It's nice the way the guitar breaks its accompaniment just enough to join the voice on Mary and
thyme.
Let's see, we back up here.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
Right, Mary and time. Emphasize it a little bit. Again, just break the pattern enough. And that's the first point at which we start to become aware of a bass line, because the guitar is now not just doing a pattern, broken pattern. It is also kind of sketching out a couple little stepwise notes in the bass. Dee dee dee.
Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine.
Nice little ornament there. Again, chimes come in.
Tell her to make me a
Here. Now here, okay. Suddenly we get another voice coming in and harpsichord. What a choice, harpsichord. Well, harpsichord did experience a sort of revival in the 20th century, both classically and I've heard it used in rock music. So it's as if everyone suddenly woke up and said, wow, that's a sound we lost somewhere along the way. But here it feels less like a novel sound of, oh wow, this is a cool sound to use. More like, again, it's coming from that timeless world when you had harp, guitar, harpsichord, virginal, clavichord, all those different instruments. And the piano didn't dominate because the piano, I won't say it wasn't invented yet, because again, this is sort of a timeless quality, but it comes from a world in which the piano is not the dominating textural harmonic instrument. It's more intimate. It is these lighter strung instruments, the traditional instruments that have been around for centuries and centuries, and you carry them. They're small enough to carry. They're small enough to exist in simple homes. They're small enough to be transported by traveling musicians. They also feature in courts and castles and other settings, but the guitar with the joining of the harpsichord, it also is a bit of a hint of the contrapuntal effect, because, of course, harpsichord had its heyday back in the Baroque era when counterpoint was king, and so a lot of little details like that.
Tell her to make me a kind shirt, a deep forest green, parsley.
And then this is where the other set of lyrics come in. What an incredible combination. I feel like I should read them because I don't know as I'm listening, it's kind of hard to unravel what's what in places. And if you haven't really tried to do that, if you just enjoyed the piece, maybe you don't even know exactly what they're saying. So I will read these lyrics. On the side of a hill in the deep forest green, tracing of sparrow on snow-crested ground, blankets and bedclothes, the child of the mountain, sleeps unaware of the clarion call. On the side of a hill, a sprinkling of leaves, washes the grave with silvery tears. A soldier cleans and polishes a gun. War bellows blazing in scarlet battalions. Generals order their soldiers to kill and to fight for a cause they've long ago forgotten. Now, I don't know if that is the sum total of all those lyrics, because I haven't actually listened to that, what did you call it, canticle? I don't know if it's just extracts from there or if that is all that belongs to it. It doesn't matter. As I was listening to this the first time, you know, this Scarborough Fair set of lyrics, they're traditional, and it's this story, this kind of set of requests. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? And then this refrain, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, which is kind of neither here nor there, sometimes happens in traditional songs. But then these requests, remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. Tell her to make me a cambric shirt without no seams nor needlework. Then she'll be a true love of mine. Tell her to find me an acre of land between the salt water and the sea strands. Then she'll be a true love of mine. Tell her to reap it with a sickle of leather and gather it all in a bunch of heather. Then she'll be a true love of mine. That's basically what the traditional lyrics are asking. So it's a love song, in a way. There's a sort of sadness to it, because she once was a true love of mine. I still think of her. And if you're going, take a message to her. Somehow, I wish that she would think of me. It's that sort of dynamic. However, many traditional songs have a deeply embedded element of pain and suffering. When I was listening to this, I couldn't help but think of Skyboat Song, which is another traditional song, Speed Bunny Boat. Oh boy, let's see. I have my mind immersed in here. Now I have to recall the other lyrics. Okay, I think I remember now. Speed bunny boat, like a bird on the wing, over the sea to sky. Carry the lad that's born to be king, over the sea to sky. It's an old traditional Scottish song, and it's actually rooted in real historic happenings. But what made me think of it is that later on, one of the verses goes into burnt are our homes, exile and death scattered the loyal men. And it's this, there's this trauma and tragedy and bitterness embedded in this beautiful piece of music. That happens a lot in these traditional songs because they come from the experiences of the people. And many times those experiences weren't all happy and easy. So I just bring that up because it's an example. It's a traditional example. And it's what came to mind as I was listening. And what Simon and Garfunkel have done here is they have added that kind of level of deep sadness and tragedy to this piece of music. And it's so well woven in that it doesn't feel like a newly composed or newly written set of words. Instead, we get this wonderful layering of ideas, a love song, a former love, a request to carry a message to a former love. There's that sort of longing and desire to, I wish she would think of me. Tell her to do this or that, all these impossible tasks, and then she can be a true love of mine. The impossibility of it all. This relationship can never work out. I recognize that, and yet I still think of her, and I still wish for her to know that I think of her. It's that dynamic, and then to bring in this sort of militaristic idea as well, but in this tragic way, because, well, as the introduction said, it was an anti-war song, and so it's dealing with these war ideas in a way that lets us understand the tragedy of it all. It adds this incredible depth of emotion to the piece, which is already a rather deeply emotional piece. And to hear it woven like it's done, I mean, this is where it starts to come together here. On the side of a hill, in a deep forest green. And then this, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. It starts to feel so unbelievable, so unimaginable. This refrain, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, which, okay, where did it come from? It's kind of unrelated in a way. These are cooking herbs. And yet it's part of the traditional tune. And to have that coming right after, on the side of a hill in the deep forest green, tell her to make me a cambric shirt. This idea that there is tragedy layered upon tragedy, and then to just flow into parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. It begins to feel so incredibly senseless and nonsensical. The violence embedded in the music.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, snow-crested cloud,
without no seams nor needlework, blankets and bedclothes, the child of the mountain. The other thing I love is how these two sets of lyrics, as they are woven together, even though they are unrelated topics, they manage to set them so perfectly that you can hear some correlation, some connection, without no seams nor needlework. That is from Scarborough Fair. Blankets and bedclothes, the child of the mountain. That is from Canticle. And yet, seams, needlework, blankets and bedclothes? Don't they belong together?
Close the child of romance, she'll be a true love of mine. Unaware of a cloudy and calm. Tell her.
Then she'll be a true love of mine, sleeps unaware of the clarion call. Tell her to find me an acre of land. I start thinking of something like Danny Boy when I hear, then she'll be a true love of mine, sleeps unaware of the clarion call. Again, this blending of the two into one. And you start to hear other tragic elements, like my lover is buried, and as I said, like Danny Boy. But it's just incredible the way they blend it together like this.
Tell her to find me.
I love the way the music dances, sprinkling. Again, I mean, I just can't help but point it out. Tell her to find me an acre of land on the side of a hill, a sprinkling of leaves. Don't those go together? But that's not what it is, really. I mean, you have tell her to find me an acre of land between the salt water and the sea strands. It's the original. But now, tell her to find me an acre of land. On the side of a hill, a sprinkling of leaves. And then, of course, comes in the refrain, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Sprinkling of leaves. I mean, it works so incredibly well. Washes the grave with silvery tears. Between the salt water and the sea strands. Salty tears, salt water. It doesn't say salty tears, but the idea is there, with silvery tears between the salt water and the sea strands. A soldier cleans and polishes a gun. All of this, it progresses and blends so incredibly well. I would be tempted, if I hadn't read the introduction, I would have thought that they composed these additional lines especially for this song. It mixes that well.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and washes the bride between the salt water and salty strands, and polishes a fan. She'll be a true love of mine.
That line, a soldier cleans and polishes a gun, as this sort of ominous depth to it. The tragic elements, the allusions to violence are placed beneath everything else, range-wise. So we have the higher melody, the higher pitches, singing all these sweet ideas, and then the darker ideas are placed down in the darker pitch range. So it's almost like we're looking deep into the shadows and we can't quite make out what's there, but it's a little bit frightening, and we know that there is something dark about it. And it's not just that it's a little bit obscured, but it is truly, there's this dark, tragic element. There's this sadness. There's this ominous quality. There's this feeling of danger and horror, which is incredible to feel coming out of such a beautiful, sweet, comfortable sounding piece. But it's there. And the guitar and the harpsichord are perfectly blending together. They complement each other so well.
In a sickle, billows blazing in scarlet battalion. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and geraniums, born of the soldiers to kill, and gather it all at the bunch of heavens they long ago forgotten.
I'm going back to the lyrics again. I can't help it. Tell her to reap it with a sickle of leather. War bellows blazing in scarlet battalions. Generals order their soldiers to kill, and gather it all in a bunch of heather, and to fight for a cause they've long ago forgotten. It's getting darker. It's getting more ominous. It's like you see the war clouds gathering on this horizon in some other time, some other world. But what it does is the traditional song Scarborough Fair has been asking for impossible tasks to be completed. Impossible. How do you reap with a sickle of leather? And then how do you gather it in a bunch of heather? I mean, really? Generals order their soldiers to kill and to fight for a cause they've long ago forgotten. The nonsense of it all, the ludicrousness, the idiocy of it all is when you say it, generals order their soldiers to kill and fight for a cause they've long ago forgotten. It's okay, we understand. It's an anti-war song. When you place it here with Scarborough Fair and it becomes embedded and layered with and woven into this song asking for impossible tasks, which are unreasonable and foolish and cannot be done, you blend that with the idea of generals order their soldiers to kill and to fight for a cause they've long ago forgotten, and you start to feel the insanity of it all. I mean, what? You want me to go reap with a sickle of leather? You want me to go fight for a cause I've nobody knows about anymore? I mean, what's this why are we fighting? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And not only why are we doing this, but you have to understand it won't achieve whatever it is that cause was about. Suppose we did remember it. To attempt to reap it with a sickle of leather. In other words, it's the message that what you're asking me to do is not going to achieve anything productive. It's not going to help the situation at all. It's just stabbing in the dark and, hoping to accomplish something with the wrong tools. That's how I feel it here. And it comes in so gently and so subtly and at the same time, so incredibly powerfully. Then she'll be a true love of mine.
Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine.
And it ends as sweetly as it began. I was just picking out the key here. We're in the key of E minor, I think. I'm tempted to play along with it because, as I said, I've played this piece in multiple arrangements and settings. I've taught it in simple form to beginner students. It's one of the early folk tunes that harpists often learn. And it's so inviting to play it. I suppose I will, just because it's nice. But as I was sitting there picking out the key, I was realizing that for me, this balance of guitar and harpsichord in this arrangement is so perfect. As much as this song itself fits and sounds so nicely on the harp, I feel like it shouldn't be in this song, in this arrangement. I mean, it's so perfect. I don't want to destroy it. Having said that, it is a lovely melody, and it does feel nice on the harp. I mean, if I just play the simple melody, you hear how the whole resonance of the instrument fits the tune. But somehow, in this moment right now, it just doesn't feel right to play it with the recording. So I guess I won't. And I hope none of you find that too terribly disappointing. It's a folk song. It's been around a long time. And when you are handling such a traditional piece of music, it's incredibly challenging to find something new that feels appropriate in how you're handling it. Meaning, okay, you can remake it in a rock style, you can remake it in any style you want, like you can do with any piece of music. And it's fun, and maybe it turns out interesting, exciting, maybe even impressive. But to hit the perfect balance, the perfect combination where you don't destroy what exists. You don't do violence to what is there, but you manage to elevate it or to enhance it or to, shall I say, I'm going to use the term colorize. Let's say you take an old black and white photograph and you colorize it, to do it in a way that is both respectful and at the same time fresh, not dull, not just a repeating of what has been done for so many decades and centuries before, is a rare thing. And I guess that's what I find so incredible about this. I've hardly talked about the voice itself. I mentioned at the beginning that it gives, when it enters, you just enter this other time. But I have to say that the way they sing this is also perfect for how they're handling it. It's a way of, well, it's yet another part of the handling with respect, and at the same time saying something incredibly profound, which is their own message. It is their own creation, because as much as this is Scarborough Fair, you would never find this Simon and Garfunkel Scarborough Fair. I mean, it's a new thing, strangely. It's an old thing and a new thing all at once. And to me, that's just incredible. It's beautiful, it's amazing, and a real treasure. It's a gem in my book, and one that I will enjoy returning to many times. And maybe at some point, I will even decide to play along with it, or maybe never. I'll see you soon.